Hello, and welcome to the Imagine Institute's DCYF Childcare Complex Needs Fund Overview Presentation. The Fair Start for Kids Act, FSKA, directs the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF, to distribute funds to promote inclusive, least restrictive environments and support providers serving children with developmental delays, disabilities, behavioral needs, or other unique needs. The funds are distributed to the Complex Needs Fund. The FSKA was passed by the legislature in 2021. The total budget allocation authorized by the legislature for the Complex Needs Funds spans 2 fiscal years, fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. This manual focuses on the first round of grants to be awarded in spring 2022. DCYF will use the results of the first round to shape and refine the program moving forward. Details for future rounds will be released at a later date. The goal of the Childcare Complex Needs Fund is to direct funding to early childcare and education providers. It's intended to promote inclusive, least restrictive environments and support providers serving children with developmental delays, disabilities, behavioral needs, or other unique needs. DCYF will consider funding proposals from providers in the grant application. This grant will function differently from previous DCYF grants. Rather than DCYF calculating grant amounts based on known characteristics of a facility or awarding each provider a set amount of funding, providers will request the amount of money that will help them meet their needs. We expect that providers will evaluate the needs of the child or children in their care and how their current staff, facilities, and/or training can be strengthened to meet those needs, and then use this information to make an informed request that allows them to improve their services. Providers must request at least $5,000. The suggested maximum award is $100,000, although providers may request more if they have a compelling need. DCYF may change the award size or structure in later rounds of grant funding as part of the grant refinement process. The number and range of the awards will enable DCYF to support a wide range of providers with varying needs. Grant funds may be used to help pay for staffing, therapeutic services, facility improvements to comply with ADA accessibility requirements or behavioral needs, supportive and adaptive materials, and equipment and/or teacher training. The Childcare Complex Needs Fund is a competitive grant. Submitting an application does not guarantee that an eligible provider will receive a grant. Eligible applicants may only receive complex needs funds once each state fiscal year. Initial eligibility for the Spring 2022 grant will be limited to open licensed or certified childcare providers who have served children receiving state subsidy through the Social Service Payment System, SSPS, at least 1 month between September 1st, 2021 and February 28, 2022, and have claimed payment by March 31st, 2022. To be eligible, providers must also have children currently enrolled in their care who have behavioral needs, developmental delays, disabilities, or other unique needs. For future rounds of grant funding, eligibility will expand to include open license or certified childcare providers, including private pay, and certain license-exempt family, friend, and neighbor (FFN) providers, serving children receiving state subsidy. Providers must have children currently enrolled in their care who have behavioral needs, developmental delays, disabilities, or other unique needs to be eligible. More detailed criteria for future rounds will be released at a later date. All early learning providers are required to have a WA Compass Provider Portal account before the completion of the Childcare Complex Needs Fund application. The application requires you to answer questions about your program and your plans for using the grant funds if awarded. DCYF strongly recommends that you review the application before you apply, so you can draft your answers, review them against the provided rubric, and make sure you're satisfied with the accuracy and completeness of your answers. If you want help reviewing your application, including your proposed plan for the funds, please contact our Technical Assistance Partners Department. Applications will not be reviewed until the application period closes. There's no benefit to applying early. DCYF recommends you take your time filling out the application and reviewing your answers. DCYF encourages applicants with no grant writing experience to apply. We do not discriminate against applications written in languages other than English, or applications with typos or grammatical errors. DCYF will provide all materials in English, Spanish, and Somali. Providers are encouraged to submit their applications in the language they feel best able to express themselves: English, Spanish, Somali, or some combination. To ensure that all applications receive equal consideration, applications submitted in Spanish or Somali will be translated into English and reviewed by DCYF Language Access Coordinators. Language Access Coordinators are native speakers of Spanish or Somali who work to ensure that translations reflect the cultural context and shades of meaning present in the original application. Attestations. By completing the Child Care Complex Needs Fund application, applicants are agreeing to the following terms and conditions. I certify that the information I have provided on this application is true and correct. I will spend the Child Care Complex Needs Fund award on the purchases outlined in this grant application. I will spend the Complex Needs Fund within 1 year of receiving the funds. By completing the Child Care Complex Needs Fund application, applicants are agreeing to the following terms and conditions. I will report to DCYF on how I spend the Child Care Complex Needs Fund. This will include keeping receipts and documentation from all purchases made with this grant money, and also completing and submitting quarterly reports using a survey that DCYF will provide. If I close my license before the 1-year cycle ends, I will return any unspent grant funds to DCYF. I will still be responsible to provide reporting and receipts to DCYF detailing funds I did spend, regardless of the open or closed status. By completing the Child Care Complex Needs Fund application, applicants are agreeing to the following terms and conditions. If I do not comply with DCYF reporting requirements or cannot show that the funds were spent in accordance with my application, I am in violation of the terms of the Child Care Complex Need Fund, and I will return the grant funds to DCYF. Selection and awards. The Child Care Complex Needs Fund is a competitive grant. All applications received within the application period will be reviewed. First, all applications will be scored according to the scoring rubric. Only applications that score above a certain threshold will be considered for funding. If more applications are eligible for funding than DCYF is able to fund, the agency will prioritize applications according to certain factors. Once an applicant has been awarded grant funds, all funds must be spent within 1 year of receiving the grant and within the scope of the proposed project. Applications will be scored according to the scoring rubric. Applicants may receive points for saying they need something, more points for explaining how the request will help the child or children in their care, and the most points for explaining the research, planning, or process that led to their decision. Providers located in extreme access childcare deserts and those serving or located in marginalized, low-income communities will receive bonus points. Providers that receive scores above a certain threshold will be considered as eligible for funding. If DCYF receives more eligible applications than they're able to fund, applications will be prioritized as described below. DCYF will look across all applications to determine trends such as most highly requested spend categories, and will develop the prioritization criteria based on this data. Because this is a new DCYF grant, the agency wants to ensure prioritization criteria are inclusive to the needs expressed by providers. Using the data gathered from all applications, DCYF will model different options for who should receive funding, taking into account how much funding is available. For example, if DCYF receives a high number of requests for funding for staffing, they may look at prioritizing applications that include this expense, since providers are expressing a great need for it. The final methodology will be available after determinations are made. Post-award. If you are awarded a grant, you will need to be prepared to submit your receipts for items and expenses you used the grant funding for. You will also be required to submit quarterly reports about your progress using a survey that DCYF will provide. Once an applicant is awarded grant funds, all funds must be spent within 1 year of receiving the grant and within the scope of the proposed project. Reporting requirements are intended to help current and future grantees. This process will help DCYF and grantees identify developing issues while there's still time to troubleshoot them. If providers indicate an issue in their reporting, DCYF will contact them to offer additional assistance or have technical assistance providers contact them directly. Information learned from these surveys will help DCYF shape and refine its grant program for future rounds. Quarterly grant reporting will be required until the grantee has spent the full amount of funds. Each quarter, grantees will submit a narrative about their progress, answering the following questions. Do you anticipate any variances from the original budget? If so, please describe. Is there a gap between the intended and actual results at this point of the project? If so, what do you believe are the reasons? What adjustments are you making, if any? What have you learned so far? Any surprises? Is there anything else you would like to tell us about your project plan, timeline, or budget? For example, have you experienced any challenges? Do you require any additional help or assistance at this time? If reporting is not submitted, the provider will be considered in violation of the grant agreement and may be required to return the funding. Providers are required to keep all receipts from purchases made within the Child Care Complex Needs Fund for 5 years, and may be asked to submit receipts to DCYF. If the provider is unable to submit receipts, they may be required to return part or all of the funds to the state of Washington. DCYF will randomly select 10% of grantees to submit receipts for purchases associated with the grant. Providers who are selected for receipt review will be notified after the 1-year grant spending period closes. DCYF recognizes there are multiple ways to track all receipts for your grant funds. Below are ideas to get you started. 1. Keep all receipts. This cannot be overstated. Developing a systematic process of filing receipts can save you a lot of time if you're selected for receipt review. 2. Scan receipts and keep them at least 5 years. This is helpful if the ink on a receipt fades. If DCYF cannot read a receipt, they will not be able to accept it as part of receipt review. DCYF allows electronically stored receipts. However, it's a good idea to back up stored receipts in case your hard drive crashes. 3. Take a picture of receipts with your smartphone. This is a great idea, and there are a number of apps that can assist you. With today's technology, you can make a note on a receipt and then take a picture of it. But remember to back up those app files too. 4. Have your receipts emailed to you, if offered. This is a great idea, and a number of vendors offer this as a service to you. 5. Avoid cash. This is very important. Cash is hard to track, easy to spend, and nearly impossible to reconcile with receipts. Use debit and credit cards. They provide you with monthly statements that can easily be matched to your receipts. 6. Don't rely on bank statements, credit card statements, or canceled checks. These are important, yet insufficient without actual receipts. DCYF may see on the credit card statement that you spent $435 at Home Depot, but they have no idea what you actually bought. It could be that you purchased a barbecue grill instead of the ADA handrails you listed in your grant application. For record-keeping purposes, bank statements, credit card statements, and canceled checks are excellent, but the detail of the transaction, which the receipt provides, is critical for a DCYF receipt reviewer. 7. Ask for help if you need to. The receipt review process is not meant to be scary. If you have questions about what receipts and documentation are required, please ask. We are here to help. DCYF is partnering with the Imagine Institute and Voices of Tomorrow to offer robust technical assistance in multiple languages, both pre- and post-award. If you need technical assistance, including assistance in your language, guidance with preparing for and accessing the application, or questions on spending and saving receipts/documentation, you can contact either the Imagine Institute or Voices of Tomorrow. Imagine Institute. Phone 206-492-5249. Email ccsg@imaginewa.org. Voices of Tomorrow, supporting East African childcare providers. Phone 206-278-8290. Email childcaresupport@tomorrowvoices.org.